This is a Shock podcast.
Shock. The C word with Callista. It's November, and that means there's only one thing on everyone's mind and one face that you'll be seeing all the time. The Qatar World Cup kicks off on the 20th of November, and Adam C from Astro Supersport will be on your TV screens 24/7. But no one's complaining though, I promise.
Wow. I thought you were going to talk about Taylor Swift.
With you, the amount that Adam C knows about Taylor Swift is probably still more than the amount that I know about football. But yeah, I mean, the World Cup is happening, and I will have no choice but to talk about football at that time, which always happens.
How serious do you want me to be?
Not very.
Okay.
Like, can make it layman terms for people like me who have
right.
no idea what's going on.
I will try my best to explain.
The only thing I know about the World Cup is I'm supporting England because obviously, for obvious reasons. But other than that, no idea.
Your mum's from Birmingham.
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Okay, straight off. How do you think they're going to do this year? Because you also root for England, obviously.
Technically more Scotland, but Scotland aren't in the World Cup. So I'll probably will go for England. But how well are they going to do? That's a very subjective question. Because if you look at the fact that they reached the semi-final for the first time in almost 30 years in 2018 in Russia, that was massive. And then in the Euro final, they got there. They got to the actual final itself, which is an improvement on being in the semi-finals. So logically, the definition of success would be to win a tournament, which England haven't done since 1966 when they hosted it. Then that would be the gauge of success, but I'm not sure they can win it. They're not going into this in good form. Let's put it that way. But hey, you know what? Pre-tournament form, whatever. When it comes to the actual tournament, that's what matters.
Okay. Well, I guess we can hope that they'll win. I think it'll be like something that shocks the world if they do win.
Yeah, I think that they shocked the world by reaching the semi-finals. You could argue they had a very comfortable route to the semi-final. You could argue they had quite a comfortable route to get to the final of the Euros as well. But it is, you can only beat whoever's in front of you. That's it. Hey, good luck, England.
I mean, at the end of the day, luck always comes into everything,
Yes.
right? So
There was one guy I said, oh, you need a bit of luck to win the Premier League, which is a better gauge of how good a team is because you play every single team in the competition twice, once away from home and once at home. But a tournament like the World Cup or the Champions League, it's knockout football. Do you know what that means?
you have to knock out the other team within your group, right?
And usually the top two go through, so not everyone needs to be knocked out on the group stage. But once you hit the knockout stage, round of 16, quarters, semis, whatever, then it's do or die. You'll be knocked out or you do the knocking out. So there's an element of luck involved. Decisions go your way. Whereas in the Premier League, if one match doesn't go your way, it's okay because there's 37 other matches to try and make up lost ground. You get what I mean? Whereas in tournament football, knockout stage, it's that or nothing.
Speaking of the Premier League, right? Like, this has nothing to do with the World Cup, obviously, but I've always been curious. You know, some teams, they just never win, but they've also got a really strong fan base that is like loyal till they die. Why do you think people do that though?
You don't switch football teams. You can't switch football teams. It's sacrilege to switch football teams. But in terms of, you have your big six who will generally always just be present around there or thereabouts. Your Manchester Uniteds, Cities, Chelsea's, Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal. And then you have all the other teams. So there's a couple knocking on the door to get in, like Newcastle. So Newcastle's in a very isolated part of the UK, but they are now officially the richest club in the world because they were taken over slightly over a year ago. So they are starting to spend the cash and they're looking very, very good, very promising for the future. But in terms of the passionate fans will always be passionate about their team, but they can't sometimes understand that it takes time to build a team. Sometimes there's no money with the side to buy players. Sometimes you buy too many players. But it's what makes football so special. People are just so passionate about their clubs. I think that's why. Smaller clubs, when I say smaller clubs, I mean from smaller cities, more like Leeds. They're very passionate about their club. It's great to see. There's so many clubs in Birmingham, for example, but Leeds is pretty much just Leeds.
Yeah, I know my family are like Aston Villa, like full on.
But there's also Birmingham City, for example, and there's lots of clubs in the Midlands itself, let alone in Birmingham. So it's interesting to see there.
So then there's like the football rivalry is like always in full swing. I feel like there's never a lull in the football rivalry.
No.
But then when they all have to get together to, like for the World Cup, for instance, like they're all on the same team suddenly, like do you think it's probably sometimes difficult for them to
It's interesting
play
you bring that
together.
up. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting to bring that up because you know who Steven Gerrard is?
Yes.
Rio Ferdinand, you heard of him?
Heard the name, yeah.
Okay, Manchester United player. Frank Lampard?
Heard the name.
Okay, Chelsea legend, all-time top scorer,
Okay.
and now Everton manager. Rio has said on TV that when they got to the training camp before tournament, before match, before friendly, whatever, they would be kind of distant to the other players unless they play for the same club. So there were quite a few Manchester United players, like Beckham, you know Beckham, right?
Obviously.
Gary Neville, Rio, and others. They would just kind of keep to themselves. And the Chelsea players like Lampard and Terry would be there, and then the Liverpool players, whoever the clubs were, the major clubs who were always competing for titles, and they didn't want to give anything away about their club stuff. So it kind of affected the chemistry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because like obviously England is one of those countries where all the players are playing for different teams, whereas maybe different countries, they don't really have as big of an issue with that. Do you think that's what's been...
I think it was a big push because from 2008 to 2012, Spain were the kings of the footballing world because they won the Euro in 08 and in 2012. So they did it back to back. And in between, they won the World Cup as well. But they would, technically speaking, have a very fractured dressing room because a lot are from Real Madrid and a lot are from Barcelona. And you talk football rivalries, that's one of the biggest in the entire world.
Yeah, even I know that.
Yeah. There you go. And there's a few other players who play for other clubs as well. But when you look at that, I'm no expert on Spanish football, but I think the captains of Barca and Real Madrid, Puyol at Barca, for example, and Casillas at Real Madrid, they made a concentrated effort to try and unite everybody together. So two fierce rivals on the pitch, Sergio Ramos and Gerard Piqué, for example, will have to play together for the national team. And I think that's credit to team spirit. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do at all.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, even like in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
Let alone having to play for your country where the pressure's already on.
Don't forget, in Spain, it's even more difficult because they're very regional. They really care about where they're from. So Barcelona is in Catalonia, and they've always wanted independence. They wanted to break away from Spanish football and join, say, the French league. They want to be their own nation. So they're very patriotic that they're from Catalonia. And then you have the Basque region and different parts of Spain. So in that sense, it's even harder because of territorial allegiances, let alone clubs.
You being on TV and having to talk about all these things like every single day, like, okay, what do you call yourself? Is it a pundit?
No. A pundit is usually the person that has played the game professionally and will give the analysis and a professional opinion. I don't really give too many opinions. My opinion's all rooted in stats. So if you, let's say you play the game, I'll say, Callista completed 95% of her passes and she covered more ground than anybody else on the pitch. That's me indirectly saying you've had a very, very good game.
Okay.
So I'm kind of throwing more opinions here and there just to try to spice things up for television's sake.
Yeah, I mean, like, full disclosure, obviously I don't know anything about football. I never really watch any of the football matches. I see you on the screen sometimes. But, like, I know Adam personally from when he was on Hits.
Yeah.
So that's why we talk. It was definitely got nothing to do with football. He tried. He did try.
Attempted on many an occasion.
Yeah, never actually succeeded. But how do you think it's different being on radio and on TV?
Talking about football?
Yeah.
TV, you have the visual aid of looking at the game. So when it comes to the TV stuff, obviously when we're previewing a match, I can get all the footage from previous games, key moments, key incidents, players, and you can really get technical with the analysis. You can't do that on radio. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I glean a lot of information from that as well. But it always helps to visually see it, and that's halving the need for explanation, really.
But is it more stressful because, like, on radio, usually when you're on air, the match has already happened, so you have all the information already. But when you're doing it on TV, sometimes it's like a live match and you have to, like, get all the information on the spot.
Yeah, in that sense. In the UK, they do live matches on radio.
Oh, okay.
So they do, like, live commentary during the matches. On top of that, they will have a pre-show build-up. They'll have conversation in studio and post-show. So when I attend the games, the Premier League matches, there's usually, like, you'll see the radio people there, you'll see the commentators, and they've got, like, the professional mics and all of that. And when I listen back to it, and they release it as podcasts usually after the show, you can hear they're still in the stadium. So they will be talking to the people in the studio. For example, with the BBC, they'll be in their studio or Talk Sport, conversing with those at the stadium. It works the same way, and there I guess you just have to be far more descriptive with your words because there's no visual aid to help you out.
I mean, you've been on all sides, right? I mean, you've done like talking about it on radio on Hits, which is obviously not live game, and then you've done the TV part, and then you've also been on the pitch.
Yeah.
So which one do you prefer?
Being pitch-sided is nothing beats it, to be honest. Nothing beats being able to see the game for yourself. And before I forget, TV is a relatively new thing compared to radio. So before this, people used to listen to radio to get their football information. So it's really famous. You would listen at a certain time because back then all the matches kicked off at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And then at 5, you'll have someone reading out the results from the top flight. This is before the Premier League existed, all the way to like the semi-professional leagues. But in terms of what I prefer, definitely being there, being able to have the player or manager sent to us at the side of the pitch after a game to speak to them directly, nothing can beat that. But now that our borders have opened up, I really missed having guests here in Malaysia as well. So we're able to do more games because I don't have to travel from one stadium to another. We can do 3 games in a night. It's okay. It's fine because we're just based in one location. And also being able to get fans to meet the players. It's been a long time since we've had that.
Yeah, and you've also been pitch side for World Cups as well, right?
The World Cup is pretty much the only tournament I haven't been to because since I joined Supersport, I've always been needed in the studio. So my colleagues, I think Reem went to Brazil.
Yeah, she told me that,
Yeah.
And Russia, I think.
And she went to Russia, yeah. So but she wasn't in the studio like I was on TV for like the semi-final and the final. So I'm a bit tied down unless we were to do pitch side for the World Cup.
So for Qatar?
No, it's difficult because for the first time, you're probably aware that the World Cup isn't happening in the summer.
I mean,
Usually,
I wouldn't know the difference.
So usually club football across the continent will happen from August till May. So the August is when your Premier League will start, and then in May, traditionally, or the final game of the season will be the Champions League final in May. And then there'll be a break of 3-ish weeks, 4 weeks sometimes. So if the season breaks in the middle of May, if it ends there, then there'll be about a month till the tournament starts. So if you get an injury at the start of May and it's not too severe, you can still come back. Players are able to meet up with the national team. They'll have maybe a week off, then they'll meet up and they'll start training, maybe have a friendly or two. But this World Cup is different. There's literally like slightly over a week from the final Premier League game on the weekend of the 13th and 14th, or 13th and 12th, until the World Cup starts. It's a very short window. And usually after a tournament, the World Cup final is usually in mid-July. The Premier League season won't start till mid-August-ish. And those players that aren't in a World Cup will come back earlier for pre-season. Those that have made the later stages of the tournament will come back later as well. But there's no time. So it's 1 week between the Premier League finishing and then the Premier League resuming a week after the World Cup. That's it.
Okay.
So if you're not playing the World Cup, technically you'll have 6 weeks off. 1 week before the World Cup, 1 week after the World Cup, and a 4-week tournament. That's it.
Will that be like kind of, I don't want to say unfair, but like, do you think it will hinder the English players? Because Premier League is obviously English teams, right?
It is English teams, but they have a lot of foreign players, don't forget.
Oh, okay.
A lot of foreign players. But, I mean, pretty much all the leagues will be stopping at the same time. So they'll all stop around the same time. So in that sense, it won't make a difference. In the long run, though, for example, in Germany, if I remember correctly, they're not going to resume their local leagues until deep into January. So they traditionally have a winter break. And one accusation is that England have never really had a winter break. They play on Boxing Day. Then they'll play again on the 28th. Then they'll play again on, say, the 1st of January. That's known as the busiest period of the season because teams are given 48 hours, 50 hours to rest, and the games come thick and fast.
That's intense.
Yeah, they say that's why the national team suffers. Because come a tournament traditionally in June, July, the players are tired. Whereas the German players and the Spanish players and the Italian players have all had a winter break. So they've had those couple of weeks off and they would be in a better physical condition. But
And
this year it's
mental, I
different.
suppose.
It is mental.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complaints from the players and managers at club level that there's too much football, that they're being thrown football matches. Now they've introduced like this semi-competitive, semi-friendly aspect in the summer called the Nations League, which happened. And one of the players said that they don't care about this tournament, but it's still a tournament. So yeah, there's just too much football going on
Like,
for the
I
players.
agree though. Like, even though I don't watch football, I feel like it's just non-stop. Like,
It's relentless.
yes, once the Champions League is done, you go with the Premier League, and then the Premier League, then there's like every 2 years this year, and then because of COVID, the timing got messed up.
So there's a lot of foreign players in the Premier League from Spain and all of that, and Italy, and all around the world. And most of the English players play in England. So it affects the national team. Whereas Spanish players who play in the Premier League, yeah, they'll be tired when a tournament comes around, but a lot of the players are still from Barcelona and Spain. Same with Germany and Bayern Munich. So they are getting proper rest periods during the winter break. England tried to sort of introduce a winter break, but it's not a proper one like it is in the other countries.
But that means it's busy for you as well, right? Like,
Oh, the busiest period is, I haven't celebrated New Year and Christmas period in a long time, because that's the busiest period. It's really, really, really busy. Back in the day, they used to even play on Christmas Day,
which is kind of crazy because like Christmas is kind of a big deal in the UK as well, right? So,
But it's also like part of the tradition that you watch the matches on Boxing Day.
I mean, good for the people who are watching.
Yeah.
Kind of sucky for the people who have to play.
I guess the compensation is you get paid, say, £50,000 a week.
I guess.
Or in some cases, £500,000 a week. So
And like, I guess like your career in like tournament football isn't
not just tournament.
technically that long, right?
Yeah, no, well, as a footballer, I mean, you're talking, if you're lucky, 20 years.
So you
might...
sacrifice 20 years of Christmas to live the rest of your life happily, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. But I should do some digging into it. But I think some players have said in the past they purposely picked up a booking. If you pick up, say, 5 yellows, that means you're suspended for the next game.
You know what? That sounds like something I would do.
Yeah. Or you're conveniently injured.
Yeah, that I would totally do that to celebrate Christmas.
Yes. I know the feeling.
So, but what about you though? Because you can't say you're injured. You can't.
Well, I mean, I'm not training. The thing is, when it comes to Christmas Day itself, for example, some managers, it really depends on the manager. It really depends on the club. So I think some clubs might give players off on Christmas, but I've heard some stories of some managers asking the players, okay, you can celebrate with your family in the morning or lunch, but you've got to come in for training after that because you have a match the next day. So you need to do the technical work or the formation work. It'll be light work. It won't be heavy, but still, it requires you to go to the training ground.
But like for you personally, because obviously you will have to cover it, right?
Christmas Day I'll be off because there's no matches on that day. But yeah, Boxing Day, you just get used to it. It's just part of the tradition. It's part of the Premier League. That's what it is.
And we kind of got distracted. So I was asking you, like, you don't call yourself a pundit. So what do you? Is it just like commentator?
I'm just a journalist, a host, the guy that asks questions.
Okay.
Whatever they want to call me, really.
Okay. And like, was that what you wanted to do, or did you just kind of fall into it?
I fell into it.
Okay.
I mean, I always loved football. You been to Shah Alam before?
Shah Alam in general, yes.
Yeah, so there's a nice stadium. Well, it needs to be refurbished, but I was there at the opening of the stadium way back in the early 90s.
Don't make yourself sound that old.
Well, my hairline would disagree with that. But anyway, yeah, so those are like some of my earliest football memories of going there and seeing some of the teams that came in. And I got sent to boarding school when I was 8, and that was in England, and I got more into football, and football's always been part of my life. It just so happens I'm fortunate enough that I'm actually working in it now.
Yeah, because every time, like, if like I post something with you on Instagram, I always get to say, oh, he's got my dream job. He's got my dream job.
Yeah, it is. It's my dream job as well. So I'm very fortunate to do what I do. Extremely.
So what would you say is the best part of doing this job and the worst part? Because there's always a worst part.
The worst part would be the hours, because we are, at time of recording, it's still October, so we're 7 hours ahead. But when the clocks change in the UK, daylight savings, we turn it backwards as well, so it becomes 8 hours. So if you have a game, sometimes before the clocks change, it's at 12:30 at night on a Saturday, and then it becomes 1:30, which means you're not getting home till 5 or 6 in the morning. So that's tiring. Sometimes you have to do the weekday matches as well. Those games kick off at 3 or 4 in the morning. So it's your clock gets flipped upside down. It's really late. But hey, if I wasn't working it, I'll probably be watching it. So
True. But how do you manage like your time then with all the different time zones and stuff?
wake up late. Yeah.
I do that anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a night owl, thankfully. I've never really been a morning person. So it works in my favor. But I don't know. It's just I've been doing it for so long now. Like, I've been with Supersport for about 10, 11 years. Your body just kind of gets used to it, and you learn not to schedule stuff in the morning, for example. That's it.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like we're similar in that sense, like the timing.
We have the same birthday.
Yeah, we have the same birthday, and I think like that definitely affects it. But we're both night owls. We're both up till who knows what time.
Yes.
And like, how many hours a day do you sleep?
Not enough.
Like, I get this question all the time as well because like I'm similar. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with like constant sleep deprivation?
Naps. So I'm quite good at having naps now. Say an hour. I find it just revitalizes me. I try not to drink more than 2 cups of coffee a day.
Okay.
If it's a really long day, I'll go for 3 cups.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But there are people who drink a lot more.
I don't drink any.
I
You
know.
right?
Yeah, but there's people I know who drink way more than I do, and I think 3 cups is quite a lot. But best investment I made when I moved into my house was a coffee machine. So before that, I used to buy those tin cold ones, but now I look forward to having the hot coffee in the morning, and then during the day I'll probably have a cold one. But yeah, coffee and naps really. But I've always had quite a lot of energy anyway.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
understatement.
Yeah. So it works out for me in that way.
And like for someone who doesn't know what you do, like what does like a normal day look like?
When there's football,
When there is and when there isn't.
when there is football, I try not to go out. I try to stay home and not do anything. Not tire myself out because quite often I'll be working till late. So I try to make sure I wake up late in the day for one. Then I have this thing where I hate coming back home and having to do stuff.
Okay.
So like I play futsal a few times a week and I try to make sure that all the chores, all the cleaning up is done before I leave the house. Because I found that before I did this, when I come back, I would just procrastinate to do it. And then sometimes I don't even do it. So I've got some cats, got to clean that up, the dishes, that sort of thing. So when I wake up, I will usually prepare for the match at night. But since we started having guests down, my schedule has changed somewhat. So usually we'll meet the guests the night before, the day they arrive. So usually they'll arrive on a Friday ahead of a Saturday game, and we'll meet up. Like tomorrow I'm meeting up with our guests at 9 p.m, which means I'm probably only going to get home at 11:30, 12 at night. So that helps in terms of waking up later. And I'm just preparing for the games at night, and then I will go to work and I'll arrive 2 hours before our show. I'll have spoken to the producers beforehand, but usually the visual clips aren't ready. So when we meet our guests the night before, they will tell us what they want to see, and then we will have to edit and use all, the circles you see, and you can draw lines and stuff.
No.
So when you're analyzing like a goal, you can circle a player,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
move them left, right, whatever. We got all the equipment downstairs, all the technology. So I'll do that mainly with the guys. So yeah, I'll arrive and then I'll just chat to the guys, and then we'll do all the football chat, and then we'll do the show, and then I'll go home after that. That's it. So I'm in the office. Sometimes I do 1 game, sometimes I do 2 games. Back when I first started, sometimes 3 games in a row, which was really tiring. That's tiring. That's mentally tiring.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's always these things like, oh, dream job. Everyone sees the end product. Right?
There's
But
always
all
work.
the things
Like,
at the back.
Now that we started having guests, usually they'll stay for a few days after, so I'll have to interview them for a show about them, or I have a podcast to record of them, or just hang out with them and make sure they don't get bored. Sometimes I even arrange golf for a few of the guys to go and play with some other people I know who play golf.
You do that?
I don't play at that level.
Oh.
So
But you do the arranging and stuff.
sometimes.
Oh.
Sometimes. We all kind of like try to chip in where we can, like someone knows somebody who does this, or I know somebody who does that. So we try to help arrange that sort of thing. Sometimes I have to go and host a meet and greet with the player at a location for Astro subscribers. It really varies. I don't really have a set routine when I'm not working matches at night. If I'm working a match at night, I'll be home and I won't want to go out unless it's essential, like groceries or something. Even I like sparkling water. I will go on a Friday before the weekend comes and do my grocery shopping then. I try to anyway. Or cut my hair. Nothing on the day of the match.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to focus on that. And the days when I'm not covering a game, it's very ad hoc. Sometimes I've got events to do. Sometimes I've got voiceovers to do. Sometimes I have to meet people for meetings. Sometimes I don't even need to leave the house. I can do it on Zoom. Now, the way it works is for interviews, as a rights holder for the Premier League, clubs have to nominate a player or manager every match day. So there's 38 match days, right? And they have to nominate a player or manager to be interviewed. Then you can apply for it. Obviously, if it's a big player, everyone's going to apply, and they can't approve everybody. So it's, again, very ad hoc. So sometimes you get approved, then I'll have to do the interviews via Zoom. But when I'm in the UK, we'll actually do it in person.
Who's your favorite person that you've interviewed so far?
There's too many. There's too many.
Choose one?
There's honestly too many.
From
Like,
the top of your head?
I remember 2005 was the first big interview I ever remember doing, so that will always be special, but it's not football related. Keanu Reeves. So
I didn't know you interviewed Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, way back in the day in
Wow.
Hong Kong. They flew me over to Hong Kong to interview him in conjunction with Constantine.
Was this for hits?
No.
Oh.
No, I just joined Hits, but this was for the TV channel I work for.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that was really big. That's the first big interview I can really remember doing in person. So that
That's
will always
pretty
be one of
cool,
my
yeah.
favorites. Yeah. Keanu Reeves, man. And now they've announced a sequel is coming out.
Yeah.
Many, many years later. And he's returning to the role.
Oh, it's like Matrix, right?
Yeah, like The Matrix. I hope it's better than The Matrix, the last
Yeah.
Matrix was, because that was terrible.
You've also got a podcast that talks about movies and... What's it called?
Geektopia.
Geektopia, and you can find it on YouTube,
It's YouTube
right?
and all of that, yeah. In terms of football, favorite interview? Do you know who Son Heung-min is? He's big. For some people, he's considered the greatest Asian player to have ever played in the Premier League.
Wow.
And that would make him arguably one of the greatest Asian players ever. He is a big deal. And he plays for the club I support called Tottenham. So with Son Heung-min, Sonny, and when I go to the training ground for Spurs... It's in an area called Enfield. In the middle of nowhere, there are always Korean fans outside waiting for him. This is the training ground. It's not that
so
easy
he's
to
still
get
playing?
there. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
He's like 29, 30 years old. He's 30 now, sorry. He's 30 now.
Okay.
And every time I do a match, particularly at their stadium, there's a lot of Korean fans. And they all go just to watch him play. And I remember once, this is me giving an answer for my favorite interview just because I can't think of anything else. But I found the story amusing. The stadium is really nice. But like how clubs have to nominate a player to be interviewed before match via Zoom or in person at the training ground, they also have to provide players to be interviewed after a match. That's an obligation the club has to the broadcasters because we're paying a lot of money, right? But it's not the same players every time. Kind of is sometimes. But they sent Son out. So you can see in the stadium, like he'll go from one broadcast at the side of the pitch to another, and the fans will literally go around the stadium. They're the only ones left because everyone else has left. The match is done. But the Korean fans love him so much they go from one end to another. And I had this two players, both in their 40s. Son got sent to us. So at the end of the interview, I said to the guys, I said, can you do this? Doing this is a heart, right?
The mini heart, yeah?
The mini heart. They're like, what? They had no idea what I was doing. But Son knew. So the moment we all did it, the crowd behind the camera, you can hear it, but you can't see it, just went crazy because it's obviously very Korean, right? So the Korean fans are watching Son do this at the side of the pitch. And I had two older guys who had no idea what this is, but they could see it meant a lot. Yeah, I thought that spoke volumes. And I think dynamically on TV, it looked really good, personally. I think it looked amazing. Other career highlights... I remember once I picked up on something when I was again at the side of the pitch. And this is why I love being pitch side because you can see things you can't see elsewhere. You can't see on TV. Well, you can, but
It's different.
it's different. I was doing an interview and let's just say I'm facing the guest this way. And I looked out the corner of my eye and I could see a Manchester United player out the corner of my eye sitting in the dugout where the players sit. This is after match. He's got his club suit on. And I got the camera to turn. This is all spontaneous, yeah? And the only reason we did it was because I saw him from the corner of my eye. And he looked crestfallen because his team had drawn a loss. I can't remember. And they panned to him. And just as they panned to him, and...
One of those perfect football scenes that you see on TV.
And that got picked up, like, globally.
Wow.
Like, we've had quite a few things... Usually because our pundits will say something and it gets picked up. Daily Mail, Sun, Joe.co.uk, Sports Bible have picked up our stuff a lot. But this was the first time something was picked up just because I noticed it from the corner of my eye. So that's another highlight. And because it's a Manchester United player, obviously it goes up a level. That was fun.
Well, you've been doing this for so many years. Is there something that you want to do that hasn't happened yet, or somebody you want to speak to that you haven't spoken to yet?
Messi. I've seen Messi up close. Like, I've been this close to him.
Oh.
Ronaldo, I've never spoken to him, but again, I've been very close to him. Messi for me is the best player in history, so I would say him.
We're
His
going to
English
get the
isn't
debates
good.
going on that one, okay?
Yeah, for me, it's very subjective. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the all-time greats as well, but for me, everything that Messi does in terms of assists, his creativity, his passing, I mean, he's having an amazing season now. But Cristiano is the greatest goal scorer, but for me, technically speaking, Messi is the greatest player. He's out of this world, really is. Those two, I guess, would be the ones I would love to sit down with together.
Okay.
And have a conversation with the three of us. That would be box office.
So that one, do you think it has a chance of happening?
Nope.
Why?
It'd be... Look, there's been only one interview I've seen, and that was because they were at the same ceremony, the Ballon d'Or, like the big footballing ceremony. They were sat next to each other, and so the host will usually go out and ask a few questions, and they were sat next to each other, and they talked about each other. But that's the only time. For one, if a league wanted to arrange it, it's very difficult because they play in different countries.
Yeah.
So they are both at the World Cup, but they're playing for different teams. So it'll be logistically... at least now, very hard to pull off. Maybe once they're both retired, you could get them in a room together. But even that, I can imagine being A, very expensive, and B, extremely hard to pull off.
I mean, nothing is impossible, I guess.
Nothing is impossible.
We'll see.
Nothing.
But before this becomes like a classroom for me on football, last question.
Yes.
So for anyone who wants to do your job, the dream job, where should they start? What's the advice?
People ask me, what did I study? I didn't know. I was supposed to be a lawyer, so it's nothing.
What?
It's nothing to do with what I'm doing now. Literally nothing.
I can't imagine you being so serious.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't have gone into... Maybe I would have just been like an in-house... But anyway, just be passionate about it. Be clear and concise. Practice talking, practice questions. Understand that you are not the star. The guests usually are the stars, the guys that you're able to speak to. And be knowledgeable. Understand... I think the biggest thing now in football is data. Everything is data-driven. Who a team signs now is usually driven more by data than anything else. So try getting a full grasp and understanding of that. I think it's a key asset. And just communication skills and the ability to interview is crucial. Yeah, I would say.
And if they wanted to like get a start somewhere,
Message me on Instagram or something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Adam C is your gateway. So that was the advice. Message Adam on Instagram.
Who do you think is going to win the World Cup?
England.
Why?
Because that's the only team I know.
It's not about knowing teams. It's countries.
I don't know who's good or not. All I know is I'm from England and support England. That's it.
Argentina are doing very well. They're in very good form heading into this. Exactly how Italy were heading into the Euros, and Italy won the Euros. A lot of teams will start very slow in a tournament, like Italy.
I know a lot of
into it.
time when you've won the World Cup, the next one you usually don't do very well.
Yeah, actually,
That
the
seems to be
champions in the last couple of World Cups have done extremely bad. And right now, do you know what's happening with the French team?
No, of course not, Adam.
No, but this is sort of like up your alley. It's more gossip than anything else.
What?
Do you have time? I'll explain in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, France, traditionally in the past have done... They're either heading into the tournament confident and in a good mood and united, like in 2018 or 98, where they hosted it as well, by the way. When they go into tournament happy, they tend to do very well. When they go into the tournament when they're beset by problems, for example, in one World Cup, the players refused to get off the bus because they didn't get on with the manager.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For example. And heading into this World Cup, they are the reigning world champions, let's not forget. Paul Pogba, have you heard of him?
Again, name, yeah.
Huge player, massive. He's a really high-profile player. Got like his own emojis and...
Okay.
He's very high-profile, formerly of Manchester United twice, and now he's with Juventus. Anyway, it turns out about 2 months ago, his brother came out on Instagram. So he's got two older brothers, they're twins. They both try to be players, but one of them came out and said, I'm going to reveal the truth about Paul. People need to know this, his sponsors and the fans. It's like, what? And they were all very close. Like, they were celebrating the World Cup together in 2018. They followed Paul. They're known as like a tight-knit family. They look very similar as well, that you can tell they're siblings. And then Paul came out, and it turns out that when he went to train for France in March, I think, they were trying to extort like 10 million from him or something. And then... sometimes at the training ground, the guys would come there as well to try and harass him, and he recognized him as his own brother, one of them. Then it turns out these people were his childhood friends who had been protecting him discreetly in the background in France for years, and they demanded to be paid for that.
That is
payment.
insane.
Yeah. So he's had to come out and say all this, and the police are now investigating it, and they've arrested his brother for extortion. Then it turns out that Paul had hired a witch doctor. So the brother said that Paul hired a witch doctor to put a curse on the other star player called Kylian Mbappe.
Okay.
For France, so that he wouldn't do well, and then maybe Paul could be the star. But Paul came out and said, no, the witch doctor was only to stop me from getting injuries or to help heal me from my injuries. So that's what we're talking about.
That is
intense. Amongst other issues within the French team as well.
Okay, so they're not going into this one
in a happy mood.
Yeah.
So it's very fractured. Plus, the strange thing about this World Cup is injuries. Usually, like I said earlier on, you'll have a month before the start of the World Cup to help you try. Like Beckham, there was this huge thing where every day Beckham broke his metatarsal and he was the captain, and will he make it back for the World Cup in time? And it was a huge deal. But this time, there's only a week.
Yeah, so if you get injured, you won't make it back.
Yeah, and to be honest, sometimes in league football, if your team is not in the Champions League final, you know your season is going to end when the league season finishes. You're not going to be finishing a week after. Sometimes a league title is done like 3 weeks before the end of a season, and players kind of just take it easy. But because the World Cup is happening halfway through the season, there's still everything to play for at club level. So the intensity is still there, and we're seeing a lot of injuries right now. So a lot of key players could be missing for the World Cup. But anyway.
So, okay, we started this with me asking, who do you think is going to win? So let's not say who do you think is going to win. Who do you think is going to go to the final?
I have a feeling it'll be a South American team in the final. Because the last time a South American team won was Brazil in 2002 with the original Ronaldo redeeming himself after they lost the final in 98. And he had a seizure before the final.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And ever since, there have always been these conspiracy theories about what actually happened, blah, 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 blah. Do you know who Ronaldo is? Not Cristiano, the original one.
No, that's Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho, yeah, he played Ronaldinho. So they played together in 2002 and they won the World Cup together. Ronaldo, for me, is the greatest striker the world has ever seen. Amazing player. Injury problems like crazy, though. He's just released a documentary, about to release a documentary about himself and what happened in 98.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching that.
So you think a South American team will take
I think Italy or Brazil.
Oh.
I would like to see Argentina. Sorry, what did I say, Italy or Brazil? I mean Argentina or Brazil.
Okay.
I would love to see Argentina do well because for Messi, he's reached the World Cup final once and lost.
Because, I mean, it's not about one player, right? It's a team sport. So.
It's a team, but I would just love to see Messi win a World Cup because I'm a huge fan of Messi. But Brazil, like the squad depth they have is amazing, and they're in very good form, as are Argentina heading into this.
Do you think they'll have like slight advantage because it is in Qatar because of the weather and everything?
Yeah, that's another thing which I think could make a huge difference. I just don't see the European teams, like the European champions, Italy aren't even in the World Cup. A lot of the European teams are not heading into this in good form, like England, for example. Saying that, Euro 96... England hosted it. They were in terrible form. The press were all over them. They were partying in Hong Kong, and everyone had written off their chances, and they reached the semi-finals there.
Oh, wow.
So don't read too much into form heading into a tournament. Italy, whenever they've won it, tend to start the tournament really slowly, like with a draw or bad result. Spain started off I think their World Cup with a loss, but they went on to win it. So don't judge it by that. It's who adapts to tournament football better, who grows into the tournament, and it's not entirely about form heading into a tournament. But again, Italy heading into the Euros were unbeaten for a record time. They set a new record during the tournament itself. So I just want Argentina to do well.
Okay.
Or England.
Okay, so Argentina or England for you for the Qatar World Cup?
I would like that, but I think Brazil's name has to be put into the mix as well. Really good form, Brazil.
Okay, well, we've only got, a couple more weeks till it starts.
Yeah.
So we'll see, and then if you get it wrong, I'm sure everyone's going to go to your Instagram. Football is that kind of sport.
One of the teams that qualified will win the tournament. There you go. Playing it safe. Okay, and if they want to get all the updates for the World Cup, where do they go? Well, Stadium Astro on our Instagram, our Facebook. Astro have got the package as well, the sports pack for the World Cup and other things as well. If you go to Astro's website, I think all the details will be there, or Stadium Astro.
But if they want to see you in particular?
I'll be on TV during the course of the World Cup a lot. Michelle Lee and myself will be doing most of the games. We've got a lot of guests coming in as well, so a lot to look forward to.
Okay, and they should follow you on Instagram?
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram. Yeah, Adam Carruthers. I'm on TikTok, but I never post anything.
You're on TikTok?
I just like to watch people on TikTok like Arnold.
Okay, we're gonna film a TikTok after this.
Oh God. No!
Well, thank you for joining me on the C Word, Adam.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. The Adam C Word. Hey!
I always want to take over things.
It's true.
The C Word with Callista.